Summer of 2026. When the whole world is turning its eyes to North America for the historic World Cup, a strange paradox is unfolding right in the United States. Millions of elderly people, who have plenty of both money and free time, are simultaneously canceling their travel plans. Many people will immediately think, it must be because of the price surge, the skyrocketing airfare, or the hotel costs. But the real answer is much scarier than that. It's not about the thickness of the wallet, but rather lurking in an underlying crisis that is silently targeting the safety of the previous generation. Why has the biggest football festival on the planet become off-limits for the elderly? What is lurking behind those glamorous stadiums? In today's video, we will unveil the shocking truth that is being hidden. Watch the entire video, as this warning could save your life, or the life of your loved ones this summer. There is quite an unfair stereotype in society when people think about gray-haired individuals. They believe that once we pass 60, we only want to sit on a rocking chair on the porch, knitting and watching life pass by quietly. But they have forgotten a proud historical fact that the baby boomer generation are the brave, resilient travelers with the most tireless legs in American history. We are not a generation that knows fear. On the contrary, we grew up with an unwavering belief that if the world opens up an opportunity, your job is to pack your bags and go. Let's turn back the clock to those glorious years, when your generation filled transatlantic flights to explore an ancient Europe, conquered the wild cold of Alaska on icebreakers, or took the wheel of RVs to embark on cross-state journeys along the legendary Route 66. Do you remember the ultimate feeling of freedom when the wind of adventure blew through the car windows back then? It was that indomitable spirit that created a shocking statistic that economists had never predicted. Before the global health disruptions occurred, older Americans did not just travel for leisure, they were the lifeblood of the entire travel and cruise industry in this country, accounting for a massive share of revenue that surpassed all younger age groups combined. We traveled to make up for the years of our youth spent tirelessly dedicating ourselves in factories and offices to see how vast this world is. If you are also a piece of that proud golden generation, someone who still has the burning desire to see the world, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your companionship is like a confirmation that the voices and experiences of our generation always deserve respect. How many states in the United States have you traveled through, or which distant countries have you set foot in? Please share your best memories in the comments. I would love to hear and reminisce with you. Clearly, a generation full of courage and unafraid of storms will never back down just because of high airfare or the minor hassles of queuing at the airport during this World Cup 2026 season. So, what is truly heavy enough to keep those millions of free spirits at home? The answer does not lie in an empty wallet, but in an invisible trap related to emergency medical infrastructure and the overload of security systems. In the host cities, a ruthless corner that can turn a trip to watch football into a survival challenge that no insurance company warns you about. We will uncover that terrifying truth together in the next part. When looking at the tightly shut windows of millions of homes with elderly residents this summer, social analysts often draw a very superficial conclusion. They say that perhaps because they are old, people are reluctant to go out, that age has dulled the mobility of a generation. But that is a completely mistaken conclusion. The truth is that many people in their 70s, even 80s, still have the same fire to see the world, to set foot in new lands. What truly holds them back is not the wrinkles on their faces or the slowness of their joints, but the fear of the uncertainty of a system that is becoming increasingly indifferent. They fear flights that suddenly change schedules without a satisfactory explanation, fear losing luggage at a strange terminal, fear the suffocating scenes of overcrowded airports, or the soulless technical glitches from booking systems and immigration procedures that drag on for hours under the cold fluorescent lights. At the age of 30, a delayed flight or a lost suitcase is just an experiential hassle, a dramatic story to recount over drinks with friends. But at the age of 75, it becomes an extreme stress both physically and mentally, a factor that can push heart rate and blood pressure to alarming levels. There is a psychological reversal that very few young people can understand. The elderly do not avoid risk. What they are actively avoiding is chaos. They need respect for their time and health, something that modern travel service companies are gradually cutting back on in pursuit of profit optimization. If you have also experienced the fatigue of facing the indifference of automated systems at the airport, please like and subscribe to our channel so we can raise our voices together, reclaim fairness, and create a decent living space for our generation. Do you agree that the scariest part of a trip is not the long distance, but the lack of professionalism in the management system? Please leave your comments in the section below. We understand that everyday administrative instability is already a significant barrier. But when a massive event like the World Cup descends, everything will no longer just be at the level of ordinary inconvenience. The 2026 World Cup is acting like a giant magnifying glass, amplifying every concern and pushing the already fragile infrastructure into a state of complete paralysis. The real trap of this season, which is turning the host cities into invisible danger zones for the elderly, are the terrifying secrets that we will uncover together in the next few minutes. And don't rush to leave. Now, let's take a deep look into the reality of the summer of 2026 as the massive World Cup descends, bringing with it a whirlwind of chaos, amplifying every existing crack in the travel infrastructure system. Across all the newspapers, people are only raving about record revenues. But the harsh reality behind it is a matrix of costs and pressure weighing heavily on consumers. Airline ticket prices have skyrocketed, hotels have indiscriminately raised their rates, public transportation systems in major cities are severely overloaded, and airport terminals are always packed like anthills. However, for those conducting independent investigations, we realize that this superficial economic factor is not the most frightening aspect. What is truly stifling our intention to step out of the house is an all-encompassing atmosphere of uncertainty where no one, not even seasoned travel agents, can know exactly what will happen tomorrow. A series of investigative articles and leaked information are continuously emerging like a warning bell. From sudden tightening of visa approval regulations, strict electronic device inspection measures at border crossings, to the phenomenon of mass unilateral hotel room cancellations to make way for higher-paying groups. The continuous policy changes by management systems have created a bitter psychological reversal within the American senior community. Many seniors are telling themselves a comforting lie. All right, I will stay home and wait until this World Cup is over before traveling. But there is a stark truth, a strong conclusion from behavioral psychology experts that no one dares to tell you directly. For someone in their 70s, delaying a trip by a few months or a year often means they may never take that trip in their lifetime. Time and health at this age do not operate on a linear axis waiting for the correction of an unstable management system. What about you? Do you think that the systems prioritizing short-term sports tourists are directly sidelining the rights of the elderly? Please leave your comments so we can discuss together. The chaotic matrix of this tournament has clearly deprived many people of their opportunities. Yet, when we delve deeper into the nature of fear, we will uncover another layer of psychological distress that is even more acute. What is truly shattering the courage of the silver-haired tourists is not merely the system being overwhelmed, but the feeling of helplessness when they are completely deprived of the most important tool of old age, autonomy. We will decode that crucial psychological trap together in the next part. There is one thing that youth often does not understand, but time will teach all of us. When we look into the psychological depth of a person who has crossed the other side of life's slope, there is a hidden truth that contemporary society often does not touch upon. When we were young, the world was a series of trials and errors, where every stumble could be a fresh start, and a night spent dozing on an airport bench after missing a flight was just a joyful memory in the travel diary. But when you reach the age of 75, the safety margin of life suddenly shrinks, and every mistake from the external system comes at a much higher cost. A canceled flight is not just a delay. A lost prescription in the chaotic luggage is not merely an administrative inconvenience. And a mild heart attack amidst the crowd at the World Cup, 2026 airports can instantly become a fragile boundary. When the body can no longer withstand chaos with resilience, the greatest fear emerges: the feeling of completely losing control over one's own safety. It is from this reality that we uncover a surprising turnaround in the travel mindset of the silver-haired generation. The elderly have never spent money to buy a plane ticket or a pure sightseeing package. What they are actually paying for is peace of mind. They need a transparent itinerary, a predictable operational system, and an absolute safety commitment from service providers. However, in the whirlwind of commercialization of this year's football festival, that peace of mind is becoming a luxury item pushed to the sidelines. If you are also feeling your trust being tested by the chaos of the modern travel industry, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. Your companionship is an invaluable source of motivation for us to together preserve the kind values that are gradually fading away. Do you agree that at this age, the peace and predictability of a trip are the true measures of a perfect vacation? Please share your perspective in the comments so we can find empathy together. When uncertainty drives the fear of losing control to its peak, it reveals a systemic flaw in the current economic operation. This World Cup is inadvertently exposing a profound paradox. While travel corporations are tirelessly chasing the short-term sports tourism market, they have unintentionally turned their backs on their most loyal and economically potent customer base. The next big trap in this story, an ironic truth happening in the marketing strategies of airlines and hotels that no one tells you about. There is something quite interesting that I have noticed after many years of observing the tourism industry. Whenever the number of customers decreases, the first reaction of the companies is almost always the same: discounts, promotion, discount coupon, special offer, cheaper tickets. They act as if the biggest problem for customers is always money. But if what we just discussed in the previous sections is true, then perhaps the travel industry is looking in the wrong direction, because many elderly people do not stay at home because the trip is too expensive. They stay at home because the trip is too complicated. Those are two completely different issues. Imagine you are given two choices. The first option is a trip that saves a few $100s, but comes with a series of things to handle yourself: multiple transfers, various apps, constantly changing procedures, confusing information, and surprises at every leg of the journey. The second option is a bit more expensive, but everything is clear, simple, and reliable. Which one would you choose? This is the wow factor that many businesses seem to overlook. For many retirees, time and peace have become more valuable assets than money. At the age of 30, people are willing to stay up all night to save a few $100s. At the age of 75, many people are willing to pay a few $100s for a good night's sleep. That's not a luxury. That is the wisdom that time brings. However, many travel campaigns today are still promoting with larger discount numbers. Instead of easier experiences, it's as if they are selling a discount key to someone looking for a chair to rest. And that's why sometimes advertisements look very appealing, but they don't actually touch on what seniors care about the most. And here is another paradox. The tourism industry often calls young people the future, but the elderly are actually one of the most valuable customer groups. They often have more flexible schedules. They tend to stay longer. They tend to spend more steadily. And most importantly, they are the ones who have spent their entire lives dreaming of trips after retirement. However, many modern systems are designed for young people. Everything requires downloading an app. Scan the code, two-factor authentication, continuous notification tracking, update changes hourly. There is nothing wrong with technology, but sometimes the convenience for the system becomes a complexity for the customers. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever opened a ticket booking app or a travel website and wondered, why is this so difficult? If so, please share in the comments. I believe you are not alone. And this is perhaps the strongest conclusion of this section. An expensive but easy trip is often more appealing than a cheap but chaotic one. It's not a matter of money, it's a matter of trust. Older adults do not seek the lowest price. They seek the most reliable feeling. They don't want to become tech experts just to go on vacation. They don't want to decode a maze of procedures just to watch a football match. They want to enjoy the journey. That's all. If you find that this video is addressing things that many people often overlook, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. because the next part will expand the story into a much larger picture. Because the deeper we look into the 2026 World Cup, the more we realize that this is no longer just the story of a football tournament or a trip. It reflects something bigger. The feeling of millions of older people having to live in an increasingly faster, more complex world that is harder to keep up with than ever before. And perhaps this is the time we need to look at this story from a broader perspective. Because if we only focus on the 2026 World Cup, we will miss the most important thing. The World Cup is not the cause. It's just a mirror. A mirror large enough to reflect what is happening in the lives of millions of elderly people today. Just think about how much life has changed in just 1 or 2 decades. In the past, you bought tickets by talking to a person. Nowadays, you have to remember a password. In the past, you held a paper ticket in your hand. Nowadays, you have to download an app. In the past, you would ask an airport staff member for directions. Nowadays, you scan a QR code. In the past, you only needed a passport and a suitcase. Nowadays, there are confirmation emails, authentication codes, update notifications, payment apps, electronic maps, and dozens of other things. None of those things are bad. In fact, they were created to make everything more convenient. But sometimes life has very strange paradoxes. This is one of the greatest paradoxes of our time. For the first time in modern history, technology makes travel easier. But at the same time, it also makes it harder for many people to travel. We can book tickets in a few minutes, but we have to remember dozens of passwords. We can find a hotel with just a few taps, but then worry whether we might miss an important step. The shorter path. But the maze is more complicated. And for many older people, the feeling of fatigue does not come from learning something new. It comes from everything changing too quickly. So fast that before you can get used to one system, the next one has already appeared. This is a point that makes me think a lot. Many elderly people today do not feel like they are getting older. They just feel like the world is speeding up. And those are two completely different things. A 72-year-old can still be healthy, sharp, and enjoy exploring. But they may feel lost when everything around them keeps changing the rules. Like an experienced driver suddenly discovering that every few months, the road signs are completely replaced. It's not that they forgot how to drive, but the road is no longer familiar. Has anyone among you ever felt that way? It's not that I can't keep up with technology, but technology has never stood still long enough for me to get used to it. If so, please share in the comments. I believe many people are feeling the same way. And this is the most thought-provoking twist. When we were young, we often thought that freedom meant having many choices. But as we grow older, we start to realize that too many choices can sometimes become a burden. Too many apps, too much information, too many confirmation steps, too many things to keep track of. The modern world is like a gigantic supermarket with thousands of aisles. Everything is available. But sometimes, that very thing makes people not know where to start. And the 2026 World Cup is inadvertently highlighting that feeling. It's not just a football tournament. It is a symbol of a world that is becoming larger, faster, and more complex. If you're still following along, please hit like and subscribe, because we are about to reach the most important part of the entire story. Because in the end, the real issue is not the World Cup, not technology, not the airport or the trips, but rather a much deeper question. When people continuously postpone the things they most want to do in life, what is it that they are truly losing? And that answer might make many of us reconsider the way we are living today. And perhaps after all we've said, this is the most important part of the story. Because the real issue has never been the World Cup. It has never been about the plane tickets, never a hotel, visa, or long lines at the airport. That's just the surface. What lies beneath is much deeper. When we were young, our biggest fear was often not having enough money to go. We look at pictures of Paris, Alaska, or Rome and think, one day, when we have the means, we will go there. But then time passes. A strange thing began to happen. As they enter the later years of life, many people no longer fear running out of money. They start to fear something else. Time, and that is perhaps the biggest turnaround that life teaches us. Youth makes us believe that money is the most valuable resource. Age makes us understand that time is the one thing we can never get back. Have you noticed? Many people nowadays don't say, "I won't go." They say, "I will go next year. I will wait until after the World Cup. I will go when things are easier. I will leave when the situation is more stable." Sounds very reasonable. Very reasonable. But life sometimes doesn't operate according to the schedule we set for ourselves, and that's what makes this story a bit melancholic. Not because someone gave up on a trip, but because they always think they have plenty of time to do it. There is an image that I always remember. Unfulfilled dreams are like books placed on a shelf with the promise, "I will read them later." Days and months pass by. The books are still there. Until one day, we realize that it is not the book that has changed, but rather our own time. I think the 2026 World Cup is unintentionally making many people confront that feeling, not because they hate football, not because they don't want to go, not because the flame of exploration has gone out, but because they are living in an increasingly unpredictable world, and sometimes that unpredictability causes people to postpone their most cherished desires. Has anyone among you ever had a trip you always planned to take but never did? If so, please share in the comments. Because I believe that many people are carrying a story like that in their hearts. And this is the last thing I want to leave before ending the video. Perhaps the most regrettable thing in life is not the trip that was too expensive. It's not the trip that's too far. It's not a trip that encounters too many obstacles. But it's the trip that we always think we will take later. The World Cup will eventually come to an end. The stadiums will turn off the lights. The crowds will go home. The news will shift to another topic. But the question that this story leaves behind will probably linger much longer. What are we postponing in our lives? And is what we are waiting for really worth sacrificing another year, 2 years, or even more? If today's video makes you reflect, please like and subscribe to accompany the channel in the next conversations. And before you go, I want to hear your opinion. If you could take one last trip in your life, where would you go? Because sometimes, the answer to that question speaks more than any bank statement or retirement plan. It speaks about what our hearts have always wanted to do. It's just that we've postponed it for too long. This video is produced for the purpose of providing information, analyzing social trends, and sharing personal perspectives based on publicly available sources at the time of production. The content is not intended to criticize or attack any individual, organization, nation, or agency. The opinions in the video are not financial, legal, medical, or travel advice. Circumstances, needs, and decisions vary for each individual. We always encourage you to seek more information from official sources and consult appropriate experts before making important decisions. If any information changes over time, please consider this as part of an evolving context. Thank you for following along and participating in the conversation respectfully and openly. See you in the next videos.